Okay, this promises to be a fun one. So if you're not a member of the group on Facebook called Fusing 101, I highly recommend it. I love the group. Lots of great advice on there, lots of great people, and they have started something with a monthly challenge now. And so the June challenge is the Use It Up challenge. And the rules were simple. You just need to use scrap to create a project. And none of the pieces could be bigger than 6 by 6 or 6 inches. And so I bought a long time ago this frame. I presume something was in it, but it was on clearance at Hobby Lobby for $1.99. I probably got it cheaper than that. And I just thought it was cool. And I've had this lying around now forever. And so for the Use It Up challenge, I thought, why don't I use this frame, which is pretty small actually. This only measures about 4¼ in diameter on the inside circle. And I thought I loved making my underwater scene with Tabitha's beautiful creations in the past, and so I wanted to make another one. I thought this would look kind of cool, particularly with this rope style hanger that was on there. It kind of looks nautical and like a little bit of a porthole maybe. So I am going to play with a couple of different techniques. I had this little scrap of copper blue and white, I think, streaky, that I think is really pretty. Now obviously it's not big enough to fill the space, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is just kind of piece this together because I'm going to end up creating some sand and a little bit of an ocean floor down here anyway, so I'm not too concerned about what you can see at the bottom. So I'm going to cut my piece and then maybe use a little bit of the scrap to try to finish out the bottom down here. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure exactly how I'll do that yet, but got a scrap of glass that's 5 inches or so. Then I had this piece of Tecta that was a cutoff. It's about 5½ by 5½. Yeah. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to cap this with the Tecta, and I'm going to put a little bit of copper carbonate, just a tiny, tiny, thin sprinkle in between the glass, and it's going to create some bubbles, which I think could look cool against this dark blue. So the bubbles are kind of darker blue turquoise color in nature anyway when you use this copper carbonate. I've featured this in some other videos, so you can go back and find those as well. But you don't need much. It's a tiny, tiny bit. And I happened to buy this bottle on eBay. I'm not sure where. I'm sure you can get it even at, I've heard ceramic supply stores and stuff sell it, but just look around. I'm sure you can find some copper carbonate. So I'm going to dust once I get my glass cut, I'm going to dust very lightly some of this on here. I'm going to cap it in the clear, and I'm going to basically make a 4¼ inch blank that I'm going to set into this frame, and I'm going to put some sea life and stuff. So I've got a bunch of kind of scrap cutoffs and things that I've acquired over time from Tabitha, some hollows and stuff. I'm going to melt some of those down. I also have this scrap bin of just accidental glass oopsies and stuff. I'm going to full fuse some of these and try to make a little bit of some coral kind of things that would be at the bottom of the seafloor. And then I have some of the beautiful murini that Tabitha makes that are some fish and some shells and stuff to kind of finish it all off. So a project with multiple firings, multiple techniques, and a little bit of risk, but a good way to use up some scrap. And I enjoyed the challenge from the Fusing 101 group. So let's go ahead and dive in on this. Ha, that was a pun. I guess I didn't intend that, but I like it. Okay, couple notes on that. I cut the first circle and it barely fits in here, and it might need a little bit of grinding. So I did shorten my cut just a little bit. So that's why this doesn't match up perfectly, because now I've made this bottom part a little bit smaller, and I wanted the circle on top to be just a little bit smaller than the blue. And so there you go. I like that little lens cutter. I need more practice with it though. And then what happened as I started to break out my clear circle here is there's a run right here. It started to crack, but I managed to get it out without that running all the way through and splitting it. You know, this is fine because I think that's going to heal fine in a full fuse anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it. So I'm going to get my glass cleaned up, and then I'm going to dust this with my copper carbonate powder. Okay, so I've cleaned up my, hang on just a second. That's better. I cleaned up my glass. I've got a piece of paper down so that I can just catch some of this from falling into my grid here. And I've got my mask, which is why you couldn't hear me very well. Now this is that copper blue and white streaky from Bullseye. It's beautiful glass. You have to read the firing notes on this. It talks about how it can leave some copper residue and can turn future glass. There can be a reaction. And so I'm using just a cut up kiln shelf as kind of a temporary shelf, and I've got 2 layers of papyrus down to just kind of protect the shelf from picking up any contaminants. I don't know if 2 layers of papyrus is enough, but it's fine. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm not going to worry about getting too much powder toward the bottom of this because, again, this is going to be covered up anyway. I'm just going to sprinkle some powder on the top, put it here, and then I'll cap it with my clear. And then I'll clean this mess up, and then I'm going to find a couple of bits and pieces that I can fuse along with this to try to create some sort of coral underwater effect for some other pieces. All right, I'm going to talk through the mask. So as I've said before, this takes very, very little to get the effect that you want. So I'm just going to put a little bit in the sifter. That's too much, but see how it came out? So I don't want to do that over this. I've got my sifter. I'm just going to lightly, too much. Try again. I'm just going to use my fingernail and kind of gently rub across that. Too much. Very gentle. Those big blotches that came out would create too many bubbles. If it's too concentrated, it's going to be a mess. That's it. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. I'm going to put that on here. I'm going to dump the rest of this back into my jar. I'm not going to worry about this little bit. Clearly I've got a giant jar, so I don't like to be very wasteful, but I'm just not going to worry about that. So I'll get this out of my way. Okay, so this will be fine. This is not too much. I can still generally see the blue through it, but I'm not kidding. I mean, too much of this stuff in one big blotch and you've overdone it. So now I just take this up to a regular full fuse firing schedule. And so maybe I shouldn't have placed that right on the middle. Give myself a little room. I'm going to move this around. There we go. So you take this up to a full fuse. For me, I'll probably take it up to about 1470, 1475 and hold it for 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put some other bits and pieces and odds and ends on here and get this ready for the kiln. Okay, this is random. I've just used little bits and pieces and tiny stuff, and these are some things I found I think that I might use to build later. I don't know, just random stuff. I found a couple of hollows that I just shoved some different glass down into. We'll see what happens. I found this streaky that I thought was kind of cool, so I cut it into slices, and I'm going to stand it on end and melt it almost like some puddles. You know, this is just a really cool looking chunk of glass, and so I cut it in half and I'm going to melt it down into 2 blobs and we'll see what happens. This was just some funky orange that I had that I made. This was from a part sheet. I don't even know what shape I expect that to come into, but I'm just going to play with it. So this is going to go into the kiln for a full fuse, full firing, and we'll see what I get when it comes out. And then these will all be components that I use to build onto that base piece. So stay tuned and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I should have known that the turquoise bubbles would not really show up in here. So you might be able to see a few of the bubbles, but that turquoise is completely lost on this gorgeous copper background. So I don't mind the background at all. You can see the seam, and this even goes in a different direction, but honestly, it doesn't even bother me too bad. And like I said before, this is going to get covered up anyway. So you can see bubbles in here, which is cool because that gives you a watery effect. But trust me when I tell you that if this were just on clear or on like a white background or something, you'd be able to see these in turquoise and they'd be really cool. So now I'm going to, oh, and just double check this does fit in here perfectly. So when it comes time to put it in my frame, I'll probably use some silicone to kind of mount it in there. But that fits quite well, so I don't need to do any grinding there. And so now it's just going to be to build out my scene. And so I'm going to use a bunch of little various bits and bobbles, and we'll build that. I had some other pieces that I fused, and so I may use some of those. I've got some glue here. It says glass tack. There's some pink glass tack. I don't have any blue, which is thicker. The pink is runnier. But I actually have some clear Elmer's glue that I like to use, and so I mix a little bit of clear with this glass tack. So I don't know if I'll use that exactly or not. I might just stick with good old-fashioned hairspray. But I'm going to put frit down here at the bottom. I have this amazing goldstone frit mix that I really like. This comes from the Glass Underground, and I just like this mix that they've come up with. So I'll probably use that for the most part on the sandy bottom here. I may go see if I have a small piece of scrap, like a rolled edge that I could use as part of the ocean floor. So I'll go dig around in my scrap and see if I've got that, but I'll build it up with this goldstone frit. I also have some clear rainbow irid frit, just a fine frit that I might sprinkle on top of that just for a little bit of a irid kind of texture that could be, or appearance that could be cool. And then, like I said, just little bits and pieces that I'm going to use to kind of build out my scene here. And then I will take this to the kiln and do a kind of a light tack fuse on it so that I get all the elements stuck on there, but I don't lose the definition of them. So I'll build that now, and you can see what it looks like before it goes into the kiln. Okay, there it is. I'm going to very carefully attempt to get this over to the kiln. As you saw, I just loaded this thing up. That blue background is just, you know, really pretty striking and has a neat look to it, so I tried to pick bright colors. You might remember in my Tabitha unboxing video from a couple days ago, I got some stringer that was called Touch of Dichroic, and it was largely clear with just a little bit of dichro sparkle, so I added a few of those stringers in there. You can see I just thought that that would provide some interesting movement and maybe a little bit of sparkle. I had wished I put them down first instead of thinking about that at the very end, but I think it could look pretty cool. So got lots of little fishes and bits and all sorts of things that just look like kind of sea life and ocean floor, and I'm going to put this in and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. Okay, so the piece is done. I'm not going to show it to you yet. I'll wait for the big reveal. But now I'm going to prepare my frame here to adhere it in. I'm just using this Gorilla Maximum Strength Construction Adhesive. It's clear. I've just got a toothpick here, and I'm just putting little blobs kind of on the toothpick, and then just using the toothpick to kind of plop it on there, and then I'm going to set this piece in very carefully to make sure that I don't get any on the front of the piece, and then I'm going to just let it rest for 24 hours or so to adhere, and I'll probably secure it with a piece of tape just out of an abundance of caution, and then I will flip it over and show you what it looks like. Okay, and here it is. You guys, I just love this. I love these elements from Tabitha. So you know, most of this is stuff that's come out of her bits, a couple of other little things that I you know, that I had, the frit here, some other odds and ends, but this is, I hope this comes across in the video. I'm just worried that it really doesn't, but that stringer turned out awesome. So it was called Touch of Dichroic, and it was mostly clear with a touch of dichroic, and it's true. There's just a little bit of sparkle in there, but the texture that it kind of creates being clear is awesome. I'm loving it. So as a little scrap project, it was super fun. Great idea for the Fusing 101 group. If you're not a member of that Facebook group, I highly encourage you to consider it. I will drop a link in the video notes to that page and to some of the materials that I got here. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this and learned a little something. Oh, on the back. So, you know, it's a little sloppy where I glued that on, but generally, you know, it's the back, so I don't really care. I think this is a super fun piece. Hope that you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more. Bye-bye.